So Beyond Boulder Dome has been described to me as a fan-made expansion, and that's a bold claim to make. Aside from the Gunrunner's Arsenal, which is a challenge pack that adds new guns, the rest of the expansions offer these awesome standalone adventures. The player gets a quest, the player sets off to a new land to do that quest, but the expansions aren't just a bunch of new quests in a new location. They play with the gameplay of New Vegas to make something new and interesting and very different from the base game. In Dead Money, you're unarmed and trapped in a weird casino thing, and zombie-like dudes are after you and you need to rob that casino while dodging them. In Honest Heart, you go on a road trip with a bunch of weird tribals and you engage in these very intense long-range gunfights in narrow canyons, and there's a big emphasis on elevation, and that coupled with the sometimes limited mobility because you're sometimes on a rickety rope bridge makes for a really interesting western pew-pew vibe. In Old World Blues, you're kidnapped by a bunch of brains, you get your own brain stolen, and then you get recruited by those brains that stole your brain to break into a series of labs to get weird science equipment so that you can overthrow an evil brain that the other brains don't like. And finally, in Lonesome Road, your character gains a backstory and you race into the Divide to stop another courier who you kind of made the bad guy from launching nukes on the MOJAVE and wiping everyone out. Or you can let him do it because this is, after all, Fallout New Vegas. These are fantastic adventures, and while being standalone adventures, they are interconnected to each other and the main game. The villain of Dead Money is the former leader of the Brotherhood of Steel in the MOJAVE. One of the companions available in that DLC gets lobotomized at Big MT where Old Blues is set, and in Honest Heart you follow Joshua Graham, the Burnt Man, the Legion commander in charge of commanding the Legion at the first Battle of Hoover Dam, and a legendary figure that is mentioned many times throughout the main game. And Elysius from Lonesome Road is mentioned in Dead Money and Old World Blues, and that's just the connection that I can list off the top of my head. So suggesting that Beyond Boulder is as good as a mainline expansion for the game is a bold claim to make. So let's accept this quest over here at the bulletin board and let's see if Beyond Boulder can deliver. Let's get into it. So the job offer is telling us to go through a drainage pipe outside Nellis and go to a lab where we need to test weapons. But as we make our way through the pipe, we are accosted by a US soldier. See, it turns out that the ghoulified remains of the US army and the invading Chinese army have been locked in a stalemate since the world ended. And because the exit is right in the middle of the battlefield, neither side has dared to make a run for it. We quickly learn, however, that most of them are pretty tired of fighting, and they haven't actually tried to kill each other in some time and have been purposefully missing shots. One army soldier even asks us to go deliver an apology letter to a Chinese soldier that he accidentally shot in the leg, and we do that and his apology is accepted. But why haven't they stopped fighting? Well, they want to, and the Chinese commander has even surrendered himself because he wants to leave the crater, and he and most of the others have caught on to the fact that there isn't a war anymore, and it's been over for quite some time. But the US commander has gone insane over the years and believes everyone to be a Chinese spy. However, we managed to convince him to stand down by telling him that he can be the shepherd that guides the united Chinese and US forces into the new world, and here he can bring order to chaos, yada yada yada. They're not important, I just need them to stop shooting long enough for me to figure out how to get into the lab where we're going. Oh, and we rescued a scientist who is also going where we are going at the US camp, and we head to the lab with her. Unfortunately, as we arrive at our new job posting, we enter the experimental weapons test chamber and find out that it's a trap. The experimental gun is glued to the table and there is knockout gas flowing into the room. Beautiful. We've been kidnapped and driven to the Colorado, and Arcade, who is carrying most of our good gear, he's gone. And I'm kind of low on ammo. Well, I guess we're gonna have to rely on our smarts then, which my character doesn't have a lot of. This is Neptune, by the way, our beautiful, normally green-haired boy. He's red-haired now for some reason. I don't know why, but normally he has green hair. Okay, so the reason for all this is that there's a virus called the Seltsam syndrome, and the guy that kidnapped us just tested it on Neptune, our leading character man, and Neptune is the first person to be cured of the virus, and that is why we were thrown in the back of the truck and driven to the Colorado, because apparently this is the epicenter of the virus. Naturally, in true Fallout fashion, things don't go as planned as the truck crashes and we are left for dead, and things are not as they seem completely. The titular Boulder Dome is not just an allusion to the 1998 Mad Max sequel, it is also where a faction of the descendants of the ultra-wealthy from before the war live now, and there are other factions outside the dome that want to get into the dome. The Brotherhood is one of those factions, and they are the ones that rescued us from the crash we were in. We're quickly tasked with finding the driver of the crashed truck, and with that, we get our first taste of the Colorado wastes. And the first taste is a bunch of cannibals that hit like absolute fucking trucks. Barely making it through a couple of fights with the cannibals and not wanting to rely too much of what little 50 cal ammo there is left, we ran into a house and took refuge there, as the monster enemies cannot go through doors, which is something to keep in mind in general for Fallout New Vegas playing. Inside the shack we learn that we are not completely alone. There is an old man here and he's apparently one of the only sane remaining residents of this town, and the freaks outside are apparently the remnants of his neighbors. However, he isn't completely alone. He has a friend, but he's missing, and he asks us to go find that friend. I'm not normally one for charity, but my equipment consists of half a dozen 50 cal rounds, a half-broken katana, an old NCR armor, and basically no food or water, and sure as shit no meds to stave off the incoming radiation that we will need to face later on. So we're gonna have to search every nook and cranny, so we might as well go look for the old guy's friend while we're at it. Searching the houses, we find a lot of useful supplies and trade our katana out for a media fire axe, which makes murdering the cannibals a little bit easier. And we also find what remains of the old guy's friend, and we return to him and receive the reward. I contemplated refusing the reward, but that guy's gonna be dead tomorrow, so whatever food he has on him will do him no good, and it will do us a lot more good, if that makes sense. I dig this expansion. It's a little bit Dead Money, it's a little bit Honest Hearts, and it's a little bit Lonesome Road. And more importantly, it's a little bit its own thing. Anyways, inside a cave a little further in the canyon, we come across the driver. He asks us to retrieve his knapsack that he lost down in the hole, and we can't continue the journey until we have done so. And we naturally agree to go into the spooky hole that has a bunch of cannibal monsters in it because, what's that? Yeah. Because fucking RPGs. As we come out of the hole again, we come upon the side of the guy inside strewn all over the cave, and a couple of cannibals gorging on him. So we naturally kill the fuckers and make our way back to the Brotherhood. And here I get kind of lost. Neptune is immune to the virus, and that is what the Brotherhood wants. But they still want to get into the dome for some cure-solving purposes, and of course to get technology so that they can wipe out the NCR. Oh, I see what they did there. Right, so we're given an experimental radiation suit and sent into the ruins of Boulder proper, and here we dodge some gnarly looking death squad dudes and hack them to bits. And up by the gate, we convince the guard to let us through, and his ghoul appearance reveals to us that that's how most of people have been surviving inside the ruins. Unfortunately, just as he's about to open the gate to a factory where we hope to find the codes we need to get into the dome, an assassin guns him down, and then we gun down the assassin. And then there was a bit of a dent in the otherwise shiny presentation of the expansion. See, I'm pretty good at figuring out how to jump over fences in Fallout games, so I kinda got on the other side of this fence and found a bit of a bug. Because you're not supposed to be able to do this, and the game isn't built to handle that. This is where we're supposed to go, the factory door is right here, but the game won't allow it, so we're gonna have to go the long way around through a facility full of ghouls, past a valley full of Death Squad ghouls, and then past some more Death Squad ghouls that are guarding the back of the factory. Inside, the commander of the factory is impressed that we made it so far, so he makes a deal with us. He will give us back Kate, the scientist that sort of got us into this situation and sort of participated in the kidnapping, but not quite. He will give us back her if we help him restore power to the facility, so that he can convert more NCR troopers into ghouls to aid him in the mission to cleanse Boulder. Let me explain. The NCR is sending troops here to keep order or something, and this guy has been turned into a ghoul a while ago and gone a bit crazy. This place is the epicenter for the virus, as we established earlier, and his solution to dealing with the virus is to convert all his soldiers into ghouls so that they will be immune to the radiation, and deploy them to eradicate all living beings inside Boulder, and by extension, kill the virus. Woof. Oh well, I'm sure that's completely fine. We help him restore his ghoul machine, rescue a partially ghoulified Kate, and we escape the facility and end up back in the Boulder wilderness. Here we run into a death squad attempting to kill some peaceful ghoul man, and we rescue the ghoul man and go back to his town with him. Here we find an entire little society barely getting by, but at least getting by, unlike the shack town where the cannibals were. They have the logbooks with the codes that we thought were in the factory, but they will only give it to us if we help them, which we do. And then something interesting happened. Normally we would do a favor for the town, right? They would then honor that by giving us our next lead, and then propose that we do some optional quest for them. But that's not the case here. Despite being promised the logbook for killing some legendary beasts and getting some meat for the town's population so they don't starve, the town sheriff then moves the goalpost and tells us to solve the mystery of the gremlin, a prankster that has been pranking the town. During our investigation we found out that the town librarian is the gremlin, but instead of turning her into the sheriff, we make a deal with her to pull a final prank in exchange for her translating the logbook if we steal it from the sheriff. And we of course then do that. The gremlin needs 24 hours to translate the logbook, and that gives us some time to go wrap up a few things before we head to the dome. We link up with the NCR, and I'm glad we did, as we learn here that the whole death squad inside Boulder killing civilians, the NCR is very aware of that, they ordered it, and the whole making ghouls thing is the only thing that they aren't completely aware of. The whole killing anyone that's infected, yeah, that's completely above board. Like I said, I'm glad I linked up with them instead of waiting 24 hours for the logbook, because later on I have to make a choice on who I want to let into the dome, and while the Brotherhood are xenophobic butthurt shits, they aren't sending out death squads to purge Boulder. Sure, they are trying to buy their way in with the cure, and their motivations are not pure at all, but it's still in this situation the lesser of two evils. Outside a bunker I found a cat, and then I took one of the villagers named Deadpan to see it, and somehow ended up with both Deadpan and the cat as a companion plus Kate. I equipped everyone in sweet Death Squad armor, and we headed back to the Boulder Underground and got the code and went to the dome. And the dome is cool, and I can finally take off the suit. Actually, that brings up my only one gripe with this mod so far, aside from a little snafu with the gate earlier. Rats in this mod, yeah, it's really bad. Yeah, if you enter the Colorado Waste without a supply of Rataway, you're gonna die. I couldn't find any Rataway in the first 4 hours of the game, and I had to resort to cheating and removing my rats via console commands. Ironically, right after the worst section when it comes to rats is over, you run into Rataway enough times that you can keep yourself from being poisoned. And the radiation considerably subsides once you are out of the factory, and it's just a... yeah, I don't know, it's a bit of a weird oversight. And once we're inside the dome, it's a complete non-issue, because the air is clean, the supplies are plenty, except it's not. The mainframe computer that runs the dome let a bunch of raiders inside the city for some reason, and they have killed most of the scientists and absolutely trashed the place. And we have to clear them out and scavenge what we can and fix the mainframe so it doesn't happen again. I tried to negotiate with the raiders to leave, but they stiffed me out of a deal, so I pickpocketed my money back and then grenaded them to smithereens and made it to the mainframe, and the mainframe is a monkey. Of course it is. Oh, the mainframe is a monkey! The mainframe computer that controls the futuristic Boulder Dome, which is like The only remaining safe city in the entire world is controlled by a monkey. So before the monkey will play nice and go back to pretending to be the sex and go back to acting as a computer, we have to go free its friends from a test lab, and we go do that. It's actually not that hard. I left my companions behind the entrance of the facility, found some monkey knockout gas and knocked out most of them, and then used a chimp knockout rod and knocked out the rest. And then I set them free, which also freed the scientists that were trapped in the facility when the monkeys rebelled, and they were also kind of sort of grateful for being set free. With the sex back to being a computer, I ran over to the Brotherhood, and together we traveled to the Dome. The Death Squad thought that this would be a nice opportunity to strike, which it is since we're moving out and we're exposed out in the open, and we fought them off and entered the Dome, where Guile, the Elder, immediately betrayed us and attempted to kill us, which was a bad idea for him, because I got some nasty ass companions on my side and a super sledge. As we begin to exit the Dome to figure out what the fuck to do now that the Brotherhood is dead, the Death Squad is mostly wiped out and the residents of the Dome gone, Harold, one of the surviving scientists, attacks us. After killing him, we learn that he is an android, and we track his location thingy to a junkyard where some neutral ghouls are hiding out, including the actual Harold, a scientist who can make the cure. We accompany him back to the Dome where he creates the cure, gives it to his formerly cryogenically frozen wife, and just as he is successful, the little twit NCR commander bursts in, Colonel Autumn style, and shoots her. Then Harold turns feral and we gun both of them down, and now there's nothing to do but get out of Boulder. We collect the keys to a truck, fill it up with gas, and then we head back to the MOJAVE, because everyone is just fucking dead, man. Beyond Boulder Dome is fantastic. It's got a few bugs here and there, but so does Fallout New Vegas proper, and I fully recommend the mod. It truly is an expansion-worthy experience, and with some bug fixing and an overhaul of the game's script, it wouldn't be out of place as a real part of the Fallout New Vegas experience. Curiously enough, this mod is from 2013 and features a narrative about scientists cryogenically frozen at the beginning of the war, and then thawed out hundreds of years later so that they can fix the worlds. Kind of like Fallout 4 actually. But how does it rank? Well, if we rank New Vegas' official expansions like this: Old World Blues, Lonesome Road, Honest Heart, Dead Money, Gunrunner's Arsenal, I would rank Boulder Dome just above Honest Hearts. It is in a lot of ways a lot like Honest Hearts, but it edges it out by having some of that creepy atmosphere that Dead Money has, and a bit of the humor that Old World Blues had, and that sense of helplessness that I also felt while playing Lonesome Road. Honestly, if it had a bit more of an open layout for its overworld, I would have put it above Lonesome Road. The narrow corridors makes it a bit try to navigate the world, and there's little reason not to fast travel everywhere. And you kind of have to, because the overworld's map is a bit borked, and there's a bit of slowdown in some areas, and I guess that's why they went for a very narrow and small linear corridor based overworld. Still, being the third best Fallout expansion is not bad at all. Congratulations, Beyond Boulder Dome, you truly are an expansion to Fallout New Vegas. Until next time, bye bye.